Hey, hi. Good morning, everyone. My name is Vinay Bapna. Welcome to all of you on this webinar hosted by Regalix, the shared demo product team, on a very interesting topic, how to explain complex products. It's very exciting here today to talk to you about this topic. Let me quickly introduce myself and how my own personal sort of background, relates to this specific topic. And today I look forward to sharing some key learnings, some of my experience on how complex products can be explained to customers. I have over 15 years experience in enterprise software business, most of it in product marketing, business development, sales-related roles. And over the years, I've worked for different kinds of technology companies, starting out with a core technology infrastructure company in the Java stack, early days of Java, J2E, etc. in Silicon Valley. Worked for an enterprise risk and compliance management company, MetricStream, which is the leader in that space. Again, a fairly complex product, so to say. We used to engage with risk managers, compliance officers, internal audit leaders of large corporations worldwide. Served as the Vice President of Marketing at MetricStream for 10 years. And currently, I'm the co-founder and CEO of Onomer, where we are building a mobile technology for consumer insights and market research. Again, a very interesting area. So as you can see, my experience spans technology infrastructure, cloud applications, mobile, varying level of complexities. But what I'm today sort of most excited about is talking to you about few learnings, few things that I'm eager to share around how complex products can be explained, how we can communicate around complex products when we are selling to customers, when we are explaining the value proposition to customers, what kind of tools, what kind of best practices have worked well for me. And I hope today I can excite you to kind of try some of these things and make them work for you as well. So just before we go into the slides, I think logistics, we'll take about 30 minutes through the presentation, and if you have any questions, feel free to send them across through the chat line, and we can take them at the end of the session, depending on how much time we have. But of course, this is, a quotation which is quite popular, quite well known. If you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough. Now, I perhaps wouldn't go that far. I'm sure all of you in your roles as product marketing managers, as leaders of business development, sales teams, or product management groups have a pretty deep understanding of what your product offers, how your technology works, what value proposition your customers should be looking for when they're evaluating your products. But I think the challenge really comes in terms of explaining this in a very simple fashion to your customers, even though there may be a lot of underlying complexity. Some of the inspiration, when I was thinking about this topic is I drew from some fairly complex ideas which are prevalent today, or, they've been around for a while, but they're quite well understood. They're quite well understood, I'm sure, by all of us on the call here, and also generally, all over the world. Different industries, different age groups, different, kinds of people, they all have a fairly good understanding of things like global warming, which is a extremely complex process, a complex phenomena over which scientists are still, debating and struggling to establish various elements and various aspects and trying to answer many questions around it. But it's a concept which is fairly well understood. If you ask any person, most likely they would have some idea about what global warming is. Similarly, theory of relativity, we started with a quote from Albert Einstein. And the third one, which, I find extremely interesting, from the healthcare world, how do you know the health of a newborn infant? And obviously, anything in the medical sciences field is fairly complex and tough for people who are not in that field to understand. And yet, I'll show you the concept which is being used to make this complex idea very, very simple. Stock market, again, a very complex process, a very complex system, a very complex environment, and yet, most of us, most people, have a fairly good understanding of what these things mean. With global warming, we know it's about increasing carbon dioxide, theory of relativity, everybody knows it's E is equal to mc squared. The health of a newborn infant, how a doctor essentially simplified this extremely complex subject into a simple term called ACPAR, which is basically just, measuring 5 attributes of a newborn child, appearance, grimace, what's their pulse, respiration, and just rating them on a simple scale of 3 points, 0, 1, or 2, and adding all of them up. And if the score is above 7, if it's somewhere between 7 and 10, then the child is healthy. And if it's anywhere below that, then depending on where it is, there are 3 levels on how it is classified. So an extremely complex notion like understanding the health of a newborn infant, simplified in a simple phrase, ACPAR, and used all over the world, and extremely simple way to understand. Similarly, like I said, stock markets, we all know it's basically, buying and selling shares. But if you look at the underlying processes, the underlying technology, the underlying concept itself, it is, fairly complex. So how is it that these complex ideas, have become widely understood? They don't require a lot of explanation. The moment you talk to anybody about these ideas, it's fairly clear in their mind, what they mean. The way I look at it is when we bring some complex ideas into the world of software, into the world of hardware, information technology, etc., it's inevitable that we are essentially talking about a large set of features, a large set of capabilities that our products offer. And the way Dilbert goes, the often sort of communicated idea is that, hey, everything needs to be easy to use, and that itself becomes, a feature amongst 100, items which are there for the product managers and the product marketing managers to talk about. So what does a complex product really need, right? So the way I think about it, a complex product is really looking at us. It's looking at marketeers. It's urging marketeers to articulate how it can be understood by customers in a simple fashion. So a few things here which would work very well is to essentially force yourself to define a simple short headline to communicate what that product is. And this is obviously not an easy task, and given that in any team everybody would have certain views, I think it's important as marketers to kind of drive convergence and drive agreement on the idea that, okay, what is a short headline that we can use to articulate what this product is, what does it do? It cannot be 10 different things. There has to be one simple headline that communicates what this product does. And the next step, I think, is to really have a short description. Many people would like this to be 140 characters, making it right for Twitter. But in any case, whether it's 140 characters or it's a sentence, it has to be a sort of a subheading, a one-sentence description of a product. So this is where I would say one would start. No matter how complex the product is, at the end of the day, there has to be a simple headline that describes it and a simple sentence description that elaborates to some level of detail as to what the product is, what it does. And I think that's where the beginning of a story, of any story, always is. That's where any story would start. What I would add here is that the stories related to complex products really need to be based on audience, because a complex product essentially would address several stakeholders, several users, several buyers in the organization. In fact, it would also address several different types of buyers. One day you could be talking to IT, another day you could be talking to somebody in finance who could possibly be a user of the product, or it could be somebody in HR, and the product really needs to have one story for all the different kinds of audience that the product has to interact with. So I would say that's where, one story, but again, based on the audience that the product interacts with. Similarly, it needs to have one sort of an image. Now, image by image, I don't really mean that, okay, it needs to be one graphic, but essentially a way for the customers to visualize what this product is. It could be a dashboard, it could be a data model, it could be a workflow, or some sort of an image which helps the person visualize, helps the customer visualize what this product is about. And then finally, a complex product needs to answer the question that, okay, so what? If this is what your product is, this is what it does, this is the story, this is what I can imagine. Now, what does it, so what? Why should I care about it? So I think being able to define these elements are the starting point to communicating complex products. Now, let's go through a few things which, we're going to focus on today. The first, like I said, is storytelling. Of course, widely used term, and I'm sure you've all thought about, what's the story that you can communicate with the product. Now, the way I'd like to introduce this idea to you here today is to think about the fact that every story actually has two sides, right? And you, of course, are focusing on your side of the story, but also put yourself in the shoes of the customers and think about what is your buyer's story, right? And it could be at the level of a one-on-one interaction if you're, thinking of one particular customer in a particular meeting, having one, conversation, or it could be at a generic level if you're trying to create a marketing message, a campaign, go-to-market strategy. So what's the story of your buyers, right? So what is the situation that they're in? How sure are you that, that's the situation they're in? Is it something that, you can validate? Can you validate? Can you ask one or two and then go to the third one and say that, hey, this is what I hear. This looks like, this is the situation that most people are in. Is it true for you as well? I understand most people in your role are struggling with, risk reporting, or they're struggling with, bringing different threats and vulnerability data together, or whatever it is. Is that your story as well? So I think it's extremely important for marketeers to understand what's the story of the customer, how the product fits in that story, right? So how do we fit into that story? I mean, perhaps we can be a hero of that story, or maybe the customer is the hero, of that story. But we have to really figure out how our product fits into her story or his story, right? And then moving forward, the way I look at the value that customers really eventually realize out of complex products is when they are able to talk to other people and tell their stories, which includes the product as well. Can they, go to their peers and say that, hey, this is the problem we are facing, this is how we solved it, we use this product, this is where, it came into play, and this is how, it helped us achieve, our objective? Or would they be getting on the stage at an industry forum and saying that, okay, here is, our story, and the hero of our story is the product that we bought, and this is the role that that product played, right? So, like I said, of course, you have, your own story. We all have our own story. But in our roles, I think it's extremely important to understand the other side of the story to start with. So start with the story of your customers, and then, of course, that has to lead to your story, which is, like I say here, focus more on the benefits of the product rather than the technical details. Also, in the story, it's critical to cover all the possible stakeholders, users, administrators, management, like I said earlier, the more complex the product, the more touch points it would have, the more number of stakeholders, types of stakeholders within an organization. So how does the story cover all the stakeholders, at least all the key, all the important stakeholders? Use examples of real people in real organizations, sometimes, even names, and, highlighting their position. Hey, John, who's the VP of this function at this organization, this is exactly what they want to achieve, or they're looking to achieve through our product, or they have been able to achieve, and this is the time they took in realizing that value. This is where they started, this is where they are today, and this is where they're looking to be 2 years from now, right? So real examples which would help customers visualize their own position if they were to use that product. Now the story is also a great tool to weave in differentiation in the conversation, and being able to weave that differentiation in, not in a way where you would say that, hey, this is how our product is better than our competition in terms of drawing out a chart and putting the tick marks and using the Harvey balls, but being more subtle about it, being more strategic about it in terms of understanding what exactly the customer needs, what's important for them, and then weaving in those differentiations in the story. As an example, you could have a product which is very strong in a certain area, let's say, content capabilities, and that's where you could weave in the stories about, how content is playing a key role for the customers who are using the product, or how content is a key element of your customer strategy, and therefore the product is the right fit for them. So I think stories also are a great opportunity to weave in differentiation. Storytelling is, of course, one part. The other thing which is always extremely critical when dealing with complex products in large enterprise sales cycles and large enterprise B2B engagements is demos, right? And what you see here, any reality show, you have performances once in a while where the judges will essentially, stand up and give a standing ovation, massive clapping, right after the show. And I think this is what demos really are. And I mean, it is, it is a show. It's time for you, for the sales team, for the person who's doing the demo, to the execs who are leading the presentation, to show and tell. And I think and I've had the sort of opportunity to be in demos, work with folks who give truly killer demos, and they have ended exactly like this, where the audience, those who were attending the meeting, have stood up at the end of the meeting and clapped and said, wow, this is exactly, what we need, and this is exactly what we're looking for, right? And this is not after a 10-minute or 15-minute, performance, but this is after a 4-hour, or sometimes even a, full day session and a presentation. So I think that's truly a bar to set. That's the bar that you could set, that, okay, how do we do these demos where at the end of the session we essentially ask a simple question: did they clap after the demo, right? And I was in a role in an organization where our CEO used to follow up after these meetings and would ask that, okay, did they clap after the meeting? That was the bar in terms of how well the demos really needed to go and had to go. And they did many times they didn't. But I think what really matters here is the process that you put behind it. So the teams that I worked with would put tremendous amount of effort in getting deep and precise understanding of customer needs. Customer needs not at a generic level, but at the level of the specific conversation, the specific deal, the specific engagement that we were looking to get into. Enormous amount of effort in understanding those needs, whether it is through RFPs, whether it is through use cases, whether it is through discovery calls, whether it's through informal interaction with the buyers, with the users, etc. But enormous amount of effort in just understanding what it is that the customer is looking for. And then, of course, careful preparation, very diligent preparation of mapping those needs to product demo, the flow, where we would start, what kind of data we would show, what kind of reports we would show, what features we would focus on, what features we would not show, what's the sequence, what examples we would use at which stage, that kind of, detailed preparation. Also, some of the talented people that I've worked with, they really had this ability to connect with people in the audience at a very personal level. They would, even in a large group, whether it was a demo to 4 people or 8 people or 20 people, they would be able to establish that connection. They would have the energy, they would have the eye contact, they would be in the flow when they're doing these demos, and they would be able to connect with the people in the audience, at a personal level. To the extent that, many times at the end of the demos, we would joke that, hey, looks like they're really going to hire you. We would joke with the person who was actually, giving the demo, because he would truly demonstrate the passion, the understanding of the customer's processes, the ability to solve the challenges that they were facing, with the product. And then, of course, being able to show what would make them successful, what would their future look like if they adopted this product, if they adopted this technology, and where, it could take them, just helping them visualize the success through the demo. So that's how, I've seen successful demos work, and I think in many cases, I felt that it was a great privilege and an opportunity that an organization, that a large client was giving us to spend that much time and bring all these people who are involved, in those key business functions, to spend that time with us and to understand and discuss how we could address and solve, their problems through our technology and through our products. So I think taking advantage of that opportunity is extremely critical, and that's where all this effort, planning, passion really goes in. One of the things that we've done a lot is using explainer videos, and this is an area where Regalix demos product does extremely well. So essentially, of course, you may not have the chance to give live demos all the time. Being able to create explainer videos changes that context. It gives the customers an opportunity to learn about the product at their own pace. So I think designing explainer videos in a way that your users can have the control, they can set the pace of how fast or how soon they want to move through it, the areas that they want to skip, the areas they want to really go deep into. Just giving them that control is extremely valuable. Organizing the entire set of elements within these explainer videos into simple use cases, into playlists, so that it gives the person the granularity of understanding something at a deeper level, and at the same time maybe skipping some things that they're really not interested in. And then, of course, using rich media content, images, text, and layering them with annotations and links, so that you can essentially loop them back into different aspects of the product, works very well. So again, explainer videos are doing extremely well today in cases where you are looking to communicate the value, benefits, features of complex products, because it allows the buyers, it allows the users their own space and time to say that, okay, hey, I can go through this and kind of build my understanding of what this product does, and go deep wherever I need to, skip these areas where I don't need to know too much. And when I have the conversation with the sales, with the product marketing team, I've already built a pretty good understanding. I can really focus on things that I really have questions around. So the customer is already well aware and understands what the product features are and how he intends to use them. The other thing today, I think, which is extremely critical, is this whole idea of bite-sized information. And I think the key thing to understand here is this notion of medium being the message, right? And so look at the medium, look at the formats in which the customers are consuming content today. I mean, not just the product content that we're creating or you're creating, but any content, right? Whether it's news, it's entertainment, it's email, it's social media, all of that, right? So there's a certain pattern around how the, content is being consumed. And it's important to get aligned with that. So it's important to, be a part of that that paradigm and, adopt those medium. So whether it's, short videos or using LinkedIn information or tweets, etc. It's extremely important to package all the content into bite-sized formats based on what the channels of content consumption are in the industry today, right? So just structuring all these elements, and not just at a generic level, but also at the level of different verticals, different products, use cases, and then interlinking them to create this perpetual engagement, because these are the attention spans are small, so you really don't expect customers to say that, okay, I've gone through a bunch of information, I'm done. I mean, essentially they're looking at consuming. I mean, all of us are looking at consuming information in small chunks and small bites, and then we're looking for links where we can go continuously absorb that information over a longer period of time through shorter engagements. So shorter attention spans, but several of these sessions, small sessions in interacting with products is what creates familiarity and interest and preference for specific products. So I think bite-sized information, packaging them for the right medium, extremely important. The last topic is really about infographics. Again, something that I have used extensively in my different roles. I'm showing a simple infographic here, which people in London, everybody knows this like the back of their hand, and I'm sure in every other city where you have metro systems, people use the map of the metro that sort of becomes the lifeline. And it's an amazing example of an infographic which shows a rather complex system, but from the end user standpoint, they know how to find what they're looking for. They know how to find what their starting point is. They know how to find what their ending point is. They know how to follow the colored lines. They know what the stations are, etc. And I think this is a great example of an infographic that we should all be using in communicating our complex products, using these visuals to show data linkages, workflows, outcomes for customers, hiding the complexity by creating layers of abstraction. We have done some very interesting work in this area. We've created these maps, we've created these large posters. In many cases, we've done this for specific customers where we felt that, hey, the model that they follow, it maps very well to our product. Let's just show it to them, in a large poster that we actually carry into a meeting. We take a print, carry it into a meeting, get everybody to huddle around it. Becomes a very, very powerful a tool of engagement. In fact, the greatest sort of gratification you would get is the next time you go and meet the customer, or your salesperson goes and meet the customer, they would have that chart, hanging on their wall, and they would be using it as a reference point for, describing their process or discussing as to what, improvements they could make and where they could, deploy what kind of functions and processes, etc. So these infographics in both digital form as well as print form can become extremely powerful tools of engagement for you for engaging with your customers when you're dealing with complex products. So that sort of brings us to the end of the key points that I wanted to cover. Do want to highlight shared demos, which is a very powerful platform from Regalix to help you save time by building such walkthroughs and bite-sized searchable information which customers can understand easily. Also, they create a platform where you can create engagements to understand early signs in terms of their interest, their traction, their stage in the buying life cycle, sort of use it as a lead generation tool, etc. So do evaluate and take a look at shared demos. You can sign up for a free trial at shareddemos.com. You have my email address here, vbapna@unomura.com. Feel free to get in touch with me if you have any other questions, if any ideas you'd like to bounce on this particular topic or any other product marketing related topic. Happy to engage with you. I think that sort of brings us to the end of the 30 minutes that we had planned. If there are any questions, you can send them across through the chat line or through the email. We'll make sure that we follow up with you and provide responses to your questions. Thanks a lot for taking the time and joining us today. We look forward to having you in another session related to product marketing very soon. Thank you once again. Bye-bye.